Hello everyone, and we hope you guys are all well. Welcome to another lesson in our Introduction to the Wisdom of Kabbalah course. This is our second semester, and today we've got the third lesson, and it's called the Spiritual Partzuf. But before we go on, there's a question that came in from Carl, which is related to the previous lesson. So I want to just go over that, and then we'll do a little recap of what we did until now. And then we'll move forward to understand what a spiritual Partzuf, or a spiritual entity, or in other words, what is a soul? Okay, great. So let's just take a look at Carl's question here. So Carl is saying, hello and thank you once again for the lessons and putting them on YouTube. I'm really learning a lot and it's clarifying many things for me. My question from lesson 21 is as follows. The masach, the screen, is a result of the first restriction, Simsum Aleph, shame. Is this correct? Yes, the restriction is an outcome of the feeling of shame. Okay, and that's what it is. So that's the first restriction. We don't first initially call it a masach, we just say a restriction first, because masach is something that has more spiritual discernments, but it's another name that that is commonly put in Kabbalah books. But the first thing we need to understand is first restriction. So first we do the restriction, and then we have a masach, and then we have a reflected light. So it's like 3 stages. Okay. The masach is because the masach is like the ability for you to calculate how much you should receive in order to bestow. All right, so that's why the restriction and the masach is a bit different. Restriction is when you just say, no, I'm not going to receive it. I'm just going to put the brakes on. And then you start evaluating. You start thinking about what to do with this desire. And if you can bring it to a bestowal, an action of bestowal, then you have a masach, which can actually calculate with that desire. And then you can have counter bestowal towards the Creator. And that's called the reflected light. Okay, that's a good question. Very nice. It is like a barrier to the reception of Creator's light, pleasures, because the resulting shame of reception for myself only is greater than the pleasure received. Am I understanding this correctly? Well, partially, yes. First of all, Malkut, the 4th phase, is receiving everything. So there's immense pleasure there. So the pleasure exists. What the problem there is, when you receive so much pleasure, you begin to understand how different you are from the Creator. And that difference brings about the shame. So it kind of spoils all the fun. Okay, imagine having a really great day and something happens that just spoils everything. And that's what the feeling of shame is, because all of a sudden I understand what the nature of the Creator is like, and then I understand what my nature is like, and this two opposite complete opposite states allows me to discern my character, my personality, really. And that, is really horrible, because the Creator is bestowing and loving and caring, and I begin to see myself, and I see myself with this full depth of how selfish, how self-loving, and how not caring about anybody or the Creator at all I am. So this difference brings about shame. It makes the desire really lowly, makes it feel like really just makes you feel bad because you're receiving everything. It makes you feel low, and from there the whole process starts to happen, like restriction, masach, and so forth. So that's how the whole system here works. So the pleasure is felt, but the understanding of the difference in qualities of form with the Creator kind of spoils the whole game, because you don't feel equal to the Creator. You feel like a real low life, and that just spoils everything. And from there, now the desire to receive has new discernments. It now starts to think about what to do with itself, how to relate to the Creator. That's what actually the restriction is. When you stop receiving everything, it's not like, okay, I'm not receiving anything and that's it. You're not receiving anything, fine, but now what are you going to do? So there are a lot of discernments in there, although we went over it rather quickly. As we study more and more the books of Kabbalah, And in the future, if you study with us, we'll study probably the study of the 10 Sephirot. We'll see that there are many discernments in these things. Therefore, by changing my perception and understanding of the relationship between the Creator and the created, bestowal versus reception, complete disparity of form, Malchut, to an understanding that full reception is actually what the Creator wants, and there should be no shame involved because you're actually bringing him pleasure by receiving. So in this perception, one actually is removing the screen or barrier restriction that has been put there as a result of shame, which now, with the new understanding, is no longer warranted. No. What happens now is you understand that the Creator wants to bestow. That's for sure, okay? But you understand that you don't want to receive under the current circumstances that you're in. So yeah, you understand the Creator wants to bestow, but you decide not to because it makes you feel really lowly. So this is where the whole where the whole thing starts actually. Okay, so the whole relationship of how to bring about me, my attitude, my desires, intentions, in order to bestow to the Creator. The whole setup starts now after the restriction, because now you got to figure out a way of how to use these desires. So the Creator is always wanting to give. That's not going to change. He's always just constantly bestowing. What the created being has to do or needs to do in order to equalize himself to the Creator so he doesn't feel bad about this common dialogue or common friendship, let's call it, they have, is the whole work of spirituality. So this is actually how we can now begin to bring ourselves closer to the attributes of the Creator by moving forward in attaining the attribute of bestowal, so we can clothe the desire to receive with bestowal and equalize ourselves to the Creator in such a way that the desire and the pleasure doesn't rule me, but my relationship to the Creator is more important, and that's the thing that kind of governs my attitude. Kind of like a person you really love, and they give you a really nice present, but for you it's not the present that really matters. It's the relationship that you have. The gift, yeah, it's great. They made the effort. They bought you something really nice. Yeah, it's great, and it's good to receive it and everything. But the relationship is not more important than the gift. The gift is kind of like on the side. It's just a representative. It's like a display of the love between you and that person. So this is how our relationship needs to turn around. So we're only receiving from the Creator, not because we want to get what He wants to give us, but because our relationship, our attitude to the Creator is now similar to His attitude to us. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Okay, if it doesn't though, send us a question again. Not a problem. We can go over these things, and it's not a problem at all. Okay. So, I hope the broadcast is all well, and now we can move on, and let's see what we can do. Let's now, draw a little bit. Let's see what we did. Let's just do a little recap of what we did. We spoke about the created being being a desire to receive. Okay, and this is the Creator. The Creator always wants to bestow. Just make this a little clearer. The Creator always wants to bestow. And this is the desire to receive, the creature. And as we know in this world, the desire and the pleasure, they cancel each other out, which is also known as a desire to receive, desire. And they cancel each other out, okay? And this is the vessel and the light, the created being and the creature. This is our general life as well. Whenever we want something, we get it. The pleasure and the desire, they cancel each other out. So this all works because we studied the 4 phases of direct light with you guys. This was from a dot, like from out of nothing, the Creator created us. And if you missed the previous lesson, if you jumped on board right now, it's really recommended you watch the previous 2-3 lessons so you catch up with us. So the Creator created a desire to receive, fulfilled it with pleasure, and then this desire to receive wanted to reciprocate the act of bestowal, but it didn't have anything to give, so it decided to receive a little bit from the Creator in order to bestow to the Creator. And then came to the fourth discernment, where the creature, the desire to receive, really wanted to receive everything that the Creator has and the Creator's attribute. And we talked about those phases as being Keter, Chochmah, Bina, Tiferet or Zerampin, and Malchut. Okay. Also, we said this is the tip of the Yud, the letter Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Okay. Havaya. So this was the structure, and then we said in the fourth phase, after the fourth phase, the created being, the desire to receive, having received everything from the Creator and His attributes, really understood what the desire to receive for oneself is. And because of this disparity of form between the Creator, Malchut is completely the opposite of Keter, the Creator, who wants to just give and bestow. We came to the understanding that we can't receive in this situation. So the desire to receive made a big restriction, which is called the first restriction. And this first restriction governs the desire. And the first restriction basically is that I don't want to receive anything from the Creator in order to receive for myself, because I feel really bad with this disparity of form, that the Creator constantly wants to bestow to me. He's always good, and I'm always receiving, and I'm feeling really bad and lowly. And that's the first restriction. Now, after the first restriction, we have many more discernments. And one of these discernments is, well, what are we going to do with ourselves? Because now that the Creator wants to bestow, but we're not receiving anything, how are we going to actually build a relationship with the Creator? What are we going to do? How are we going to build a relationship? How is this going to work out? Because if we stay in this way, we're never going to have a connection with the Creator, and we'll never get to the purpose of life. But we understand that the purpose of life is actually to be fulfilled, to receive everything from the Creator, because the Creator wants to bestow. We already came to that discernment here, and we already wanted to reciprocate. Now we're at such a state that we understand what we are, we understand what the Creator is, and now, because of this oppositeness in characters, in personalities, that the Creator's absolute love and bestowal, and the creature, the desire to receive, is absolutely selfish, wanting to receive everything. This disparity of form makes us like a dog and its owner. Right? For example, let's say you have a dog, okay, and you love your dog, right? And you want to feed your dog, you want to take him out for a walk and everything. But at the end of the day, your dog's a dog. He's never really going to understand you. He won't. You're a human being. He's a dog. He may be a man's best friend, but at the end of the day, a dog is also a desire to receive. The dog does love you because you feed it, you look after it, you play with it. Dog feels happy about himself because you're looking after him rather nicely. And every now and then you throw him a bone and he loves it. And he's really eating that bone, that barbecue, bit of that barbecue bone, and he's really loving it and licking it. Imagine if somebody threw you a bone to eat. You'd feel really bad, wouldn't you? Imagine the Creator and you are sitting down, and the Creator is doing a barbecue, a really big, juicy steak. He's cutting a piece, and he's going, hey, there you go, catch. And you're catching it and eating it. As a human being, we'd feel really bad about ourselves. We'd feel really lowly, wouldn't we? Like what kind of a gesture is that? What am I, a dog? Well, that's exactly how we would remain if we didn't do the restriction. So the creature has to come to such a state that they got to see eye to eye with the Creator. Otherwise, we just remain like a man and his dog. And the purpose of reality is not to be like a dog. The purpose of reality is to be like the Creator. So this first restriction has a lot of discernments that one needs to go through and understand. So once the first restriction occurs, a new phase starts. Now up to here we already did the lessons, so if there are any questions or if you're new on the course, go back, and I suggest watch them all, because as we move forward it becomes more and more tricky. So let's start to read again from the sources so we can actually follow a Kabbalistic text and format ourselves and give ourselves direction. So we're going to read now. Let's see what we're going to read. We're going to read from Baal HaSulam. And we're reading from an article called Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. And it's on page 241 in Kabbalah for the student, and it's item number 8. Okay, so, all right. So the matter is like a rich man who took a man from the market and fed him and gave him gold and silver and all desirables every day. And each day he showered him, with more gifts than the day before. Finally the rich man asked, "Do tell me, have all your wishes been fulfilled?" And he replied, "Not all of my wishes have been fulfilled. For how good and how pleasant it would be if all those possessions and precious things came to me through my own work, as they have come to you, and I would not be receiving the charity of your hand." Then the rich man told him, "In this case, there has never been born a person who could fulfill your wishes." There you go. So Baal HaSulam also gives us an allegory here about a rich man who's taking care of his poor friend. And actually the poor man, who's a good friend of the rich man, feels really bad about himself because he feels like he's just receiving charity. He doesn't feel like he's doing anything to reciprocate. He feels bad about himself. He feels bad about his life, everything. So this is a very important point that we have to understand, because the whole idea of existing in this reality and working for spirituality, working in order to build our spiritual life, is very important, because it comes from this phenomena of shame. Because the Creator now wants us to build reality, just like He built His reality from nothing. He built for us this reality out of nothing. And He wants us to build the spiritual reality out of nothing. This is the only way we can be equivalent to Him. So a person needs to build his spirituality while living in this world. By studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, he can do that. And that will elevate him to the degree of the Creator, where he and the Creator can be actually at the same level, where they can actually have a reciprocal relationship without one of them feeling bad. All right, so there we go. Let's read a little bit more and see how we go. I'm reading again from Matan Torah. I'm continuing from item number 8. It's a natural thing, since on the one hand he experiences greater and greater pleasure the more he showers presents upon him, but on the other hand it is hard for him to tolerate the shame for the excessive goodness that the rich bestows upon him. This is because there's a natural law that the receiver feels shame and impatience upon receiving gifts from the giver out of compassion and pity. From here extends a second law, that never will anyone be able to satisfy the need of his friend to the fullest, because ultimately he will not be able to give him the nature and the form of self-possession, as only with it is the desired perfection attained. So once again, this is a law in nature, that if we constantly receive from someone, we're just going to feel bad about ourselves. We're going to feel incompetent. We're going to feel like we just can't get anything done. It's like, being in a depressed situation. So this also exists in the laws of nature. So the more somebody is receiving and taking and so on, they actually feel bad. All right? So the spiritual Partzuf, what is it? And what should we understand? Now, the spiritual Partzuf it's another word for a soul. It's another word for a structure where the created being can bestow to the Creator and receive in order to bestow to the Creator. And the Partzuf has a few things we need to probably draw and explain. As we said before, the Creator is always wanting to bestow. This is not going to change. This is how the Creator is. Now, the created being, let's draw this in green so we have a different, the created desire to receive. Okay, that's the desire to receive. And in the desire to receive, now, this desire to receive here, by the way, here, consists of all the phases. Okay? Now, everything that happened here is now this. Okay? Because every other previous phase is my previous phase. So as I'm going through this development, I'm becoming something. And this thing, this desire to receive now, under the first restriction, includes everything in it. Okay, it's like a child growing up. The child includes all the things, the experiences, the knowledge that the child received from previous years. So the Partzuf here consists of all these levels, which is root 1, 2, and 3 and 4. Okay, so this is the root phase, first, second, third, fourth phase, or the tip of the Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Okay, so there we go. Very nice. Okay, now let's see what happens. Once a screen is placed, okay, so let's make this a little thicker. And let's make this red. Okay, so now we have a screen here. Now, after the restriction, what we have here is a masach, and a masach is actually also known as a screen. It is also my intention to bestow. Okay, in spirituality, the Creator created the desire to receive, and we learned in the previous lessons that that's fixed, that's not going to change. We're a desire to receive, and that's the end of it. There's nothing we can do about our desires. We are a desire to receive. But what we can do is build a relationship of bestowal towards the Creator, and that's the masach, and that's what we need to build. And in that masach, there's everything. That's the actual head. It's actually the brains of everything. How we're going to bestow, how much we're going to eat, how much we're going to take, how much I should do in order to bestow. What should I do? How much should I take in order to bestow to the Creator? So the Creator wanting to bestow now gives me the opportunity to receive a little bit, but in order to bestow. Okay? Bestow back to the Creator. So let's do this. So the Creator wants to bestow. I'm willing to take a little bit, but in order to bestow. And this is my bestowal. And I can only bestow as much as I took. Okay? There we go. As much as I can bestow, I can take. More than that, I can't. And the minimal achievement of this reception in order to bestow is called a Partzuf, which, once again, means, don't let the technical words scare you off. It's just a very simple understanding. A Partzuf is a spiritual entity which can bestow to the Creator. That's it. Or a soul. Soul also means an entity that can bestow to the Creator. A person who can bestow to the Creator, we say, has a soul. If he can't bestow to the Creator, if he doesn't feel the Creator, if he doesn't have a connection with the Creator, he doesn't have a soul. So actually, none of us actually have a soul until we feel the Creator. So this whole thing, from here to here, top to bottom, is called a Partzuf. And this part is called the Rosh of the Partzuf. Rosh literally means head. In other words, where I make my calculations. Okay, so that's the head. And this part is called, let's make it a different color so we're all, and this part here is called a guf. And guf means body. Now in spirituality, as we know from previous lessons, when we're talking about a guf, a body, we're not talking about this meat. We're not talking about our body with this flesh and meat. We're talking about the desire to receive. So in spirituality, when they're talking about a body, they actually mean the desire to receive. That's called a body. Okay? And that's the guf, which is the body. And the body is separated into two parts. Okay? One part of it is called, it's called a toch. And the other part is called a sof. So toch means inside, sof means the end. Just like, we have a body up to our belly button, let's say, and then we've got legs and down. Okay? Think of it as a desire to receive. Just like our body has parts, the desire to receive also has parts, but the desire to receive has desires. That's its parts. Okay, so our body has organs and stuff. In spirituality, a Partzuf, the body of the Partzuf, consists of desires. So we have a lot of desires, we have a lot of wants in spirituality, and this is how it's divided up. And this is what's called actually a Partzuf, where the Creator and the created being have at least some kind of a relationship where the Creator can actually bestow and the created being can receive in order to bestow. And that's it. That is a Partzuf. So now then, so we have also, what do we have? We have the masach, okay, the screen. We have the guf. We have bestowal, which is actually called, let's give some technical names, okay? This is called or hoser. Or hoser means reflected light. Or means light. Hoser means returning. So returning light is or hoser, and that's my bestowal, okay? And the Creator is or yashar, which means direct light. So the Creator's bestowal and the pleasure from what He's giving me is called direct light. So light actually, in other words, is pleasure, isn't it? Because the Creator wants to fulfill us with pleasures. So that's or yashar, and my reciprocation is or hoser. And the pleasure I take in is called or pnimi. And that means inner light. And any light that I don't take, okay, because I can't bestow more, so I'm not taking everything that the Creator gives me, okay? So there are some things I'm not taking from the Creator, even though the Creator wants to give 100%. The Creator is always 100% bestowal, but I'm not taking 100% because I see that the pleasure is going to really, take my mind off the Creator completely. I'm just going to have so much pleasure that I'm really going to forget about our relationship. So I'm taking a little bit from the Creator. And everything I'm not taking remains outside. And it's called, let me draw that with blue. And it's called or makif. Or makif. Now we draw or makif like this. Or is light, makif is surrounding. The reason it's surrounding is I see the pleasure is there, but I'm not taking it. So I understand there are pleasures, and even though I'm not taking it into my vessel, I know what's there. Okay? And that's called or makif. So the light that I'm not willing to receive because I can't bestow with those desires is called or makif. So that now becomes a structure. It becomes a way for me to make discernments about what I want, what the Creator wants to give me, the pleasures He wants to give me, and how I can arrange them in such a way that I don't feel shame or lowliness when I'm receiving from the Creator. And by receiving, I actually feel as if I'm bestowing to Him. It's like I'm doing a favor to Him because He wants to bestow. He really wants to give me everything. So if I receive in order to just make Him happy, that means I'm bestowing. Okay? So now we've got to build this relationship. And once we do that, that's going to become a Partzuf, a soul. Okay? So we need to build a spiritual head. So let's draw that in a bit more sophisticated way. Now I drew that like a kli, like a round cup, because that's how we started. But now I'm going to change that into a bit more, something a bit more sophisticated. Well, I think it'll be sophisticated. Let's see how we go. Okay, there we go. So we can also draw a Partzuf like this. At the end of the day, don't let the difference in drawing confuse you at all. We're talking about only three things: the Creator, the created being, and the relationship we're going to build between us. That's it. Everything in spirituality only is composed of those three things: Creator, me, and how we're going to arrange our relationship. That's how it is. So the Creator always wants to bestow. Okay. Non-stop. Okay. And where I can begin to make a calculation is called Peh. Okay, now Peh literally means mouth, okay? But, in fact, let's do this. Let's make it a little thinner. It literally means mouth, but you need to understand that this is where the masach is. Okay? It's the place of the masach. So in the spiritual parts of that's where the masach is. It's in a place called Peh. Do not confuse it with our body. I'm just telling you about it because so you know about it, but it has nothing to do with our corporeal body. Our body is a reflection of spirituality, but it doesn't have anything spiritual in it. If it had something spiritual in it, we'd be feeling the Creator. But because we don't, this is just a way of kind of describing a spiritual entity. Okay? So that's the Peh. And then we have the desire to receive, don't we? Underneath this is all desire to receive. Desire to receive. And the desire to receive has the root, the first, second, third, and fourth phases. Okay? That's what it has. Now, let's see what we've got here. Until here, I'm just making it a little nice. We have 3 places. Let's call this. Okay. The last phase, as you know, is Dalet, the 4th phase. Okay. 4th phase is also known as Dalet. Dalet. Dalet means the letter D or number 4. Okay. So up to here, this place is called the Tabur. Let's write it in red. Tabur. Okay, it's a level in the Partzuf It's a place called tabur, just like we have the navel, okay, our belly button. And then what we have is our root 1, 2, 3 levels. Now here is up to where we receive the light, okay? So the light comes here, or pnimi, inner light. And here is empty, because here we can't bestow. All right, that's how it is. Now Dalet is actually much greater if we were actually to draw it. I made it all even out, but actually if we were to draw it, right, we'd be drawing it like this. Okay. So here we have the pair. If I do this my way, it's going to be much better. Okay, so we have root 1, 2, 3. Okay, here we have the tabur, and this whole place is 4. The reason is the fourth phase includes all those big, coarse desires. So it's the really bottom of everything. Okay, so this is where we can receive the light in order to bestow, or pnimi. And this is empty. I can't use these desires. Okay, so up to here I can take in order to bestow. And according to that, this is where I make the calculation. That's my Rosh, head. According to that calculation, I can bestow back to the Creator. And then that means I can take this much in. Okay? And everything else I can't take in is or makif. Or makif. The surrounding light. In other words, all the other pleasures which I have refused. Okay? Now this empty place is filled with the light of Hasadim. Now remember, we learned the lights before, so the lights are nothing new. You guys know from the previous lesson that this is the light of Chokhmah. This is the light of Bina, which is also Hasadim. Hasadim means mercy, Chokhmah means wisdom. Okay, so when we're talking about, when we're saying it's empty, we're saying it's empty from the pleasures of reception, but it is still full because it wants to bestow. It's just not receiving anything. Okay? So it's still filled with the light of Hasadim. So there's still light in there. Let's do this a bit more organized. Okay, there we go. And where I receive the light is called Toch. Where I don't receive it is called Sof. And this whole thing is called the Guf, the body. Okay? And that's the Rosh, and that's the returning light, or Choser. And this is the Creator's light, or Yashar. Okay? And that's Peh, that's where the Masach is. Okay? So all of those desires that we had, let me get rid of this and we'll make a comparison and you'll see it better in a minute. If I had drawn all of this, just like a vessel, like this, like before, okay? This is where the Peh is. Same thing, just a different way of drawing it, okay? That's it. The Creator is still bestowing. And as much as I receive in order to bestow, It's up to the tabur. In fact, let's do it exactly in a way that it matches. That's the tabur, okay? So I'm receiving in here as much as I can in order to bestow. And that's my bestowal corresponding to this. Okay? And whatever I can't bestow, I leave empty. I don't receive. And that's this part here. So it's all the same thing. In here, there are the 10 Sefirot, okay? It's like we can say here. So we've got the Rosh. Let's do this, okay? So we have Keter, Chochma, Bina, Zerampin or Tiferet, and Malchut, okay? So Keter is actually, you know what we can do? I'll do it a bit better, because Keter is the Rosh, so that's Keter for you. You have Chochma, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, okay? There you go. So those are all the desires that are out under the tabur, okay, which are really impossible to bestow at the moment. But in the future, as we get to bestow more and more to the Creator, we'll be able to fulfill those as well. Okay? But at the end of the day, what we want to know is the structure of a Partzuf today. And that's what a Partzuf is. Okay? Any questions? It doesn't look like we have any questions, but okay. Now, if you have questions later on, you can always send your questions via email, okay? And then we can answer them the next lesson as well. Okay, so toch is here as well. It's the extent of how much I can receive in order to bestow, and the sof is the area which I cannot receive because I can't bestow with those desires. And the whole of that thing is the guf. Okay, so this is like the guf, just like I wrote on the left here. That's the guf. And this part where we're making all the calculations is called the rosh, just like I wrote here. Okay. So the same structure, it's just drawn differently. It's good for you to know both ways of drawing, because in the books they're both the same thing, but they're drawn differently, and you might come across any one of them. So let's read a little bit more and see what we can learn from what's going on in this structure. Now, from the above allegory between two friends, we can understand the matter of zivug dehaka and the or chozer that rises through it, which then becomes new vessels of reception for the upper light instead of bechina dalet. Okay, now this sounds a little complicated because we're new. Okay, if we weren't new, this wouldn't be so complicated. It wouldn't sound a bit weird to us. Now, this is what it's talking about. Let's read it again, and we'll go over it step by step. From the above allegory between two friends, we can understand the matter of zivug dehaka. Now, zivug dehaka means mating by clashing. So, the Creator is wanting to bestow to us everything. So he's putting some pressure on us. It's like we went to his house and he prepared a meal for us. And he wants to make sure we eat everything and we feel good and, you know, we get to eat everything. He's done a full course for us, everything, the dessert, the coffee, the cigar, the cognac after the meal, everything from scratch to the whole thing. It's like a big feast. So he's giving us this relationship, this attitude where he wants to give us everything. And because we're in that restriction mode, okay, the first restriction never gets cancelled. It's a law now. What happens is the Creator's pressure and our resistance is called a clash. It's called haka. It's like a beating. It's like when you beat a metal, the sparks come out. That's actually what it is. Zivug dehaka means mating with, clashing. Because the Creator is putting pressure on us to take. All right. From the above allegory, between the two friends, we can understand the matter of Zivug dehaka. So that's the Zivug dehaka. The Creator wants to bestow to us everything. And the Or Hoser that rises through it. So it's like the Or Hoser, this is our reflected light. And our reflected light is rising. It's like returning the favor, which then becomes new vessels of reception for the upper light instead of Bechina Dalet. Now, he's saying, because I'm now bestowing to the Creator, I'm beginning to feel pleasure, not just in receiving what the Creator wants to give me here, but also in building this beautiful relationship towards the Creator. So it's like, imagine becoming fond of someone. Okay? So all of a sudden you're fond of someone, you begin to like them, and that is becoming now the source of the pleasure instead of the meal that we're having together. Okay? And that's the new vessel that we're building here. So instead of Bechina Dalet, which is this desire to receive, okay, so this is Bechina Dalet. This is Bechina Dalet. So instead of this, now we're focusing on Or Hoser, which is now becoming a vessel of reception. So in other words, we're beginning to enjoy the reciprocity, that nice fondness, that nice pleasure that we're building from our mutual connection with the Creator. That becomes a new vessel. Okay? And that's very important, because there you begin to feel the pleasures from bestowal towards the Creator. Okay? So it's a whole new concept, but this is where the degree of bestowal is now being built. It's beginning to kind of take some kind of impression in us. Okay? We can compare the upper light which strikes the masach. Okay, so that's our masach here. We can compare the upper light which strikes the masach and wants to expand into Bechina Dalet. So the Creator wants to just keep going into the desire to receive, saying, listen, take everything. I made everything for you. I cooked everything for you. I prepared everything for you. Take everything. Go on. Have a great meal. And wants to expand into Bechina Dalet to the pleading to eat, because as he yearns for his friend to receive his meal, the upper light desires to spread to the receiver. And the masach which strikes the light and repels it can be resembled to the friend's rejection and refusal to receive the meal, since he rejects his favor. Okay, so the masach here is rejecting the food, because what did we say before? The first restriction occurred because we want to make sure our relationship is not at fault here. We don't want to have a dodgy relationship with the Creator. We want to make sure we see eye to eye. Okay, so in order not to spoil this relationship, I'm measuring accordingly and saying, you know what, I'm just going to take as much as I can bestow and continue with this fond relationship that we have together without the pleasure kind of taking my mind off this relationship we're building. Kind of like when you go to a meal, let's say, and they offer you some really nice wine, but you understand that more than 2 glasses is a bit tricky. And you want to make sure you want to keep your head where it is. So you take 1 glass, you drink 1 glass, and the second you're not receiving, because you want to make sure your head is where it should be. Okay, so kind of like that. And just as you find here that it is precisely the rejection and refusal that became the proper vessel to receive his friend's meal, you can imagine that the Or Hoser, which rises by the striking of the masach and the rejection of the upper light, becomes the new vessel of reception to the upper light. instead of Bechina Dalit, which served as the vessel of reception prior to the first restriction. So before the first restriction, we were happy to receive everything and have fun in the pleasures from what we got. But now we developed something else. We developed another vessel of pleasure, and that is the vessel of bestowal. So this new phase for us, this Or Choser, becomes something that we created now, out of nothing. Because before we were just a desire to receive. But now we begin to build something from scratch. We're saying, no, let's use all our desires to receive and the desire of the Creator to bestow in such a way that we can have a reciprocal relationship and we can feel pleasure from each other's company and not have materialism be a cause for our friendship. Okay, so it's just like having a good friend beyond materialistic desires. So having a friend that when you have a mutual good close friendship where you don't have benefits from each other, where you like wanting to completely fulfill each other, you love each other, you want to help each other out all the time without any payback. Well, this is what we're building with the Creator, because the Creator is constantly bestowing. That's what the created being is feeling. That's why this whole process is beginning. And now, by beginning to build this bestowal, this attribute of bestowal, the created being now begins to feel pleasure in that relationship. And that's a whole different ballgame. So it's pretty much like building a good relationship with someone on a mutual basis, obviously. Okay? And this is why we need to understand that the Creator on the one hand wants to bestow, the created being is created in order to receive everything, but now out of this situation, we're building a mature, like a decent person, let's say. Okay, there we go. And if we end up doing that, we'll be calling ourselves a Partzuf. And this is what a spiritual Partzuf is, actually. Now, if you have any questions, we'll be able to go over it, but I think we've got a question from Marty.M.Meydan. If I'm bestowing from peh, mouth, from within onto another, will that person feel the light or pleasure that the Creator wants to give? Let me read that again. Marty.M.Meydan is asking, if I'm bestowing from peh, okay, right, the mouth from within onto another, will that person feel the light or pleasure that the Creator wants to give? Well, everybody has to have a relationship with the Creator themselves. However, your question does have some validation, because at the end of the day, how are we going to really bestow? Okay, now it's a nice question. Okay, by no means I'm going to disregard that. We're all in one reality. Okay, which we spoke about before. Everybody is in this reality. In fact, the Creator is also in this reality, believe it or not. Our only problem is we don't feel the Creator, but the light of the Creator is in the whole of reality. There is no place without the Creator. So the Creator is here, we're here, everybody's here, but because we're opposite to the Creator is out of our bounds in our perception of reality. So a Partzuf actually is a way to feel the Creator. So this is reality, full of the Creator's light, His influence. Okay? When we're talking about light, we're talking about the Creator's approach, the Creator's relationship to us. Okay? Because the Creator is actually unperceivable, unattainable, but He is understandable because we can understand anyone from their actions. So the Creator is actually acting upon reality where we all exist. 8 billion of us. Everybody in the world lives in this reality. However, our biggest problem is, because we're in our corporeal desires, we want to receive constant pleasure for ourselves. We don't feel the Creator because in creation there's a law. I can only perceive things if I have an equivalence of form with my senses. And because the Creator is full bestowal and we're full reception, we're just out of bounds. We can't sense each other. He can sense us, we can't sense him. The reason he can sense us is because he's full bestowal, so he can sense everything outside himself. But because we're desired to receive pleasure, our little world is as big as our desire. We all live in our desires. And this is why it's a narrow, boring world. We just can't get out of it. It's like living in a little box. So this is our existence here, okay? But what we can do is this. If there are a group of people who attain spirituality, let's say this is Marie, okay? So this is Marie. And because Marie, let's say, is a Kabbalist, okay? Let's say you became a Kabbalist. What you can now do, Marie, is receive from this light in order to bestow to others. Okay? There we go. Now, what's the difference between Marie here and this desire to receive? Well, this desire to receive gets filled out and the desire cancels the pleasure. Here, though, what you're doing is you're actually relating to others like the Creator is relating to you. Imagine you love someone. Whenever you can do something for them, you're fulfilled. Because when we do things for the people we love, we're like happy, right? Imagine buying your kids presents, taking them out, and all that kind of thing that you love doing. Why? Because they're happy. And because they're happy, you're happy. But wait a minute. You just spent your time, money, and effort on other people, your kids, but you're really happy about it. Well, a Kabbalist is doing the same thing. His happiness is endless, simply because he's bestowing to everyone. And the only way to do that is by being able to receive from the Creator and by bestowing towards others. And in that way, you become a channel of bestowal. So you're constantly relating with love and giving towards everybody else. Now, where does the peh come into it? Well, you can only receive light of the Creator as much as you can bestow to others. That's where the peh comes in. So you're receiving from the Creator in order to bestow as much as you can without spoiling the relationship. Because at the end of the day, you could really become egoistic trying to do that as well. So in spirituality, everything is measured. Everything I receive from the Creator I can do in order to bestow, as long as I'm sure I'm bestowing. In order to know how can we be sure? Well, in order for us to be sure, we have to have a connection with the Creator while living in this world. Nothing is going to happen when we die. The person, any created being who wants to attain the Creator must do it while living in this life. Okay? So make sure you're staying alive. Okay? And getting the job done. There we go. And that is endless pleasure, because what happened at the end of the day? Well, at the end of the day, you receive everything from the Creator, plus bestowal, but in order to bestow, so you're getting all the pleasures that the Creator is giving, all the pleasures that you get from bestowing, you're getting all the pleasures, but you're bestowing. I don't know if that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, if there's something not understood, drop a line. Ask a bit more so we can clarify it. Okay, so imagine you all of a sudden become like the Creator who has everything, and now you're giving everything you have to the kids, to the family, in a way that will actually be helpful for them. And just like with kids, we can't give them everything, okay? We have to make sure we give them certain amounts so that they can grow up properly, because we don't want to spoil the children either. And we don't want to give them everything, because we want to make sure, they are able to achieve some things on their own. Otherwise, if we did everything for them, they'd be quite stupid, wouldn't they? Because they'd never get anything done if we were doing everything for them and giving them everything. So even if you're really, really rich with children, you never show your money to your children. Just give them enough and tell them, this is how it is, little by little, okay? Otherwise, they'll always be expecting you to give because their desire is to receive. So the attribute of bestowal involves in it a lot of wisdom. It actually involves the thought of the Creator. This is why we don't get anything, we never get what we want in this world, okay? Why? Because if the Creator gave us everything, we'd be like animals, like little rabbits, okay? That's it. So it's very, very important. In order for us to bestow, we need to understand the Creator. We need to understand how to bestow. What's the right way to bestow? And this is our spiritual path, and this is what we need to build. There we go. So I hope that answers your question. Like I said, if there's anything unanswered, though, feel free to also send us an email, and the next lesson we can always answer them. And that's pretty much it for this lesson. And this is the spiritual Partzuf. There we go. The important thing to understand here is, as we came from the second semester's first, second, third lesson we're on now, it's just to understand this process. So let's just do a little recap. That the Creator created the desire to receive here. Okay? The desire to receive wants to reciprocate, wants to bestow back. But understands there's nothing to bestow. I'm not desired to receive. I have nothing to bestow. Then it understands that I can receive in order to bestow. And then I understand, wow, this is great. I'm like the Creator and I've got everything He wants. Everything He has, I have now. I'm getting everything from the Creator, plus I get to be like Him. So I'm like really, really happy with myself. And this is the fourth phase, the real desire to receive. And from there, we come to shame, the first restriction, and now the Partzuf can be started to be built. Okay? And that's pretty much it. All right, dear friends. I hope you guys are liking the technical lessons. Sometimes people find it a bit challenging because we've got some technical words in there. But please, don't be turned off by it. I actually want to give you everything that I can possibly give, so you know everything. And it's just these little names here and there. As we get to read the books, to study, it'll all settle in. Just like when we're learning a profession sometimes, I don't know, like if you're learning botany, or I don't know, you're learning, I don't know, like medicine or something. There are a lot of words in there which are Latin, right? They've got Latin names for this and that and so on. Why? Because they're technical stuff. And the wisdom of Kabbalah also has some technical names. So it's good for us to know, okay? And there aren't many, okay? So as we go and move forward in the syllabus, I'm just sticking a few names here and there so that we begin to get our heads around this whole thing. Slowly, slowly it'll sink in, and then slowly, slowly we'll try to translate these lessons into inner sensations and feelings. Okay? All right, and until the next lesson, we're going to love you and leave you. Take care of yourselves, and as you know, you can always drop us a line. And if you have any recommendations, also drop us a line. We'll be more than happy to get to know you. And if you're interested in studying more after the semester, we'll also help you out as well. There are a lot of friends from around the world. So feel free to be in touch, get in touch with us, and we'll try to see how we can help you. All the best, take care, and hopefully see you next week. Bye now.
the ending clip.